Hey fans, it's me, Steven. Long-term fans may remember me as the first guest on the second episode, We Three, which was actually in the month of March, the third month. The joke was that it was 3 themed, but it was only the second episode. Boy, these two sure were hopeful. Well, I'm back again to bring you more goofs and gaffs and talk about comics that, boy, I've never even heard of before. Not until they made a Netflix show about it, at least. Here's Sweet Tooth.
That was really good, Steve.
Fade in.
Welcome back, everyone, to Comrade Cocktails and Comics. It's a show where normally I, Snoop Lynch, and my co-host, Higgins Sturm.
Hey, that's me.
Yep, well, the two of us together, we talk about a book and a drink that we had, but we're not alone this time. As you know, we've got Steve here.
Yeah, joke's on them. Steve's actually going to be the only one that talks this whole episode.
But we're going to cut out what he says and then just record our reactions to it.
Yeah, just be a blank set.
Could you just imagine an hour of silence of this podcast? I'd love that.
Well, they just like turn it on and they're like, this... I mean, it's not great, but like they're doing a lot of things here.
The room noise in this is pristine, but unfortunately, it's business as usual, Higgins. So we're going to talk about a book. Steve was kind enough to introduce the book. Steve, you're here. Tell us what the book is again.
Hey guys, I'm Steven, a roommate. I told them that I would pay my rent for once if they let me be on the podcast. The book is Sweet Tooth. It's about a young boy. What am I telling? Can we start over?
No, that's good. So, as you mentioned at the beginning, we're talking about Sweet Tooth, and normally, Steve, I give a synopsis of the book that we're going to read, but I figured since you're our special guest, you could do that. So tell us, what is this book about?
Sweet Tooth is the story of a courageous young boy who is born in a world where there's a plague that is absolutely wrecking everyone's KD ratios, except for, now here's the twist, some people are born, children are being born as animal hybrids, like you got a pig and a deer. And that's what young Gus is, Sweet Tooth, the titular character. He's half deer, half man, but they're somehow immune to the disease. And so lots of people want to get after him and get their DNA and do nasty things with him. But Gus meets a nice man, Mr. Jeopard, who wants to bring him to safety and says he can take him to the promised land. What do they call it? The Providence?
Preserve.
The Preserve.
Yeah, the Preserve.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
The Preserve. And they are going to go there.
Man, do they ever.
Boy, do they go.
Steve, what you described sounds like just a lovely, hopeful book. And to be honest with you, it's not quite that.
Yeah, it's
this
pretty
book
sad.
is very depressing. A lot I'm not going to talk about it, but a lot different than the Netflix show. I think a lot of people will kind of like that, the tone of that a little more.
That's not what we're about here.
No, and it makes sense because it's written by favorite author of the podcast, Jeff Lemire.
Oh yeah, Jeff Lemire.
He's back.
He's our boy. This is like number 3, I think, by him.
Yeah,
at least.
This is actually I kind of looked into it. This is his first ever ongoing series he had. This is kind of what put him on the map. He had done a graphic novel for Vertigo. It's like Mr. Nobody, or no, maybe it's Mr. No, or just Nobody. But that did well enough where Vertigo was like, "Here's your, you got an idea. Here's a series. Just we'll see what happens." And I read an interview about it and kind of how this came up, and apparently, because this is written and drawn by Jeff Lemire, he does that more so in the beginning of his career, and then he's so busy now, I guess he just can't do it. But
just has to pump out the stories, and he's like, you guys can handle the rest now, right?
Exactly. And so this idea originally just came from him sketching down a boy with antlers, and he kind of built the story around that original drawing.
Like, why would this boy have antlers?
Why is he so sad?
Because he ate too much candy. He didn't eat enough vegetables.
That's right. I'm eating a lot of candy today, Higgins, courtesy of you.
Oh yeah, I asked the boys what they wanted, and I said I got them.
I got chocolate.
You guys can talk around. What's your candy bar of choice?
For me, it's a Milky Way. It's like that midway point between a Snickers and a Three Musketeers. I can't commit to either one.
You shouldn't have to, Steve.
Just like a girlfriend. Hey-o, it's 1990s again.
Man, but yeah, no. What about you, Snoop?
Well, I'm chomping on it right now. I'll probably cut that out of the podcast, but I'm going for a Hershey's Symphony bar. It's a little fancier than your average Hershey's. You know why? It's got almonds and toffee chips in it.
Wow. That's probably a symphony of taste.
Higgins, it's like an orchestra in my mouth.
So I actually didn't get my favorite candy bar because it was literally like the one that they didn't have. There was just an empty spot where it was, and that's a Butterfinger. So I got a Kit Kat, which was fine. I almost got a Reese's, but then I was like, is a Reese's a candy bar?
That's a different debate.
Yeah.
So if you could have had it your way, Subway style, what would you have gotten?
It's a Butterfinger.
Mm.
That's I'm a pretty partial to chocolate and peanut butter.
It's a good combo.
Yeah.
You're right. That is more candy bar than a Reese's cup, which nothing wrong with a Reese's cup.
And then I got us 3 Crunch bars because I think that's what his favorite candy bar is. It's just based off of what I'm
Jeff
seeing.
gave him a crunchy bar.
Yeah, I mean, it's an off-brand.
You got us an off-brand crunch bar.
I mean, he got the Dr. Pop or the, I don't know, Shasta Cola version of that candy bar.
It's got a bit of zest in it, you think?
I don't think it has any zest. I'm sure it's just like a Crunch bar.
It's got
like, the rice kernels.
There's a little
I
bit
mean,
of
there
zest.
could be a chili flake version. I don't know. I'm not a candy.
Do you guys
Man.
remember Crunchy made, back in, I think it was 1999, Crunchy made caramel chocolate bars, and they had a little caramel like layer in the middle of them, and they don't sell them anymore because too many kids were freezing them and using them to, like, they would put it in someone else's mouth and chomp their head down on it and like rip kids' teeth out with it. This is a real thing that happened with Crunchy bars. They don't make caramel anymore.
Man, that sounds sadder than this book.
Yeah, do you want to start? Do you want to start it? Do you want to start with the real sad part first?
What's that?
Like, first of all, so he's a deer.
Dear boy, yep. Named Gus.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, but me and Steve were talking about it, and they bring in another off-brand thing, which is Dandy. And that's a deer.
The Bambi deer thing.
And so the first sad thing is that his mom's dead, and that happens to Bambi in the movie too. Spoilers, sorry.
Whoa. I've been wanting to talk about the Bambi Dandy thing. May I?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
There's something, so Jeopard calls him Bambi when he first meets him. But then later on, you see that there's like a book, or maybe it's like a book, like a kid's book called Dandy. And the cover is very obviously like Bambi. It's even got Thumper, the little bunny rabbit.
And a skunk friend maybe too.
And maybe a skunk on it. But it's very obviously Bambi. And so it makes me wonder, in a universe where Bambi doesn't exist because it's Dandy, how does Mr. Jeopard know to call Gus Bambi? What makes him think of that?
Maybe it's
the deer connection isn't there.
maybe there's both in this universe. Maybe there's Bambi and Dandy.
Maybe it is the Shasta Cola type thing again.
So what you think happened is Gus found a Chinese knockoff book called Dandy, a kid's book called Dandy, and that's what he knew was Dandy. He never knew Bambi. Jeopard knew Bambi because he grew up with American stuff. Gus only had the Chinese knockoff.
Yeah.
That's all you find out in the woods.
Because that's all the only stores they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, knockoff stores.
Yeah, maybe they just have both. What's the thing the Lion King maybe copied, but isn't as popular?
Oh, Kimba the White
Hamlet?
Lion.
Yeah, maybe it's a Kimba the White Lion, Simba the White Lion thing.
Sorry, it's Hamlet though too, right?
Hamlet.
They did copy Hamlet, yes.
Disney loves Shakespeare.
Don't we all?
Nemo. I found out Nemo isn't even original. Fuck me, right?
Steve, I love this. You're bringing just a flurry of revelations to the podcast today. I appreciate that.
I have to. It's all I think about, these things.
I'm learning a lot, and you know who else is learning a lot? Gus in the story, because he's getting out of the house, leaving the woods he's grown up in his entire life, and finding out that the world kind of sucks.
Oh yeah, because the second sad thing happened to him, and his dad died of the same disease that everybody died of, just for whatever reason, slower. I guess it just hits everybody like kind of different, because I mean Jeopard's there, and then like all the other people are there somehow.
Yeah, as far as I kind of took it, the sick comes and goes in waves, like a familiar virus that we're experiencing around this time.
Oh.
But I think that
you mean like back a couple of years ago?
Yeah, the swine flu.
We don't want to date our podcast for later listeners.
Makes sense. Thanks, Higgins. But kind of talking about his dad, I think what they were trying to imply is he got sick later on, possibly from Gus, I don't know why he would get sick all of a sudden because he's been raising this kid for the last 9 years or whatever. That's kind of the overall view of this world for some people is the sick started around the same time as the hybrid kids were being born. So it's that question of which came first. Did the virus, virus cause the hybrids caused the virus. And because of that, a lot of people have split on the issue. Some want to just murder all these kids because they think that will fix the world.
That'll stop the pandemic plague thing.
Exactly. And then you have the preserve, which he finds out about, which is supposed to have kids like him.
Which might or might not be real.
Exactly. I like with this first volume, it's only 5 issues, I think. And it's just mostly him getting out of the woods and traveling with Jeopard, the big man, he calls him.
Yeah, we don't even really see too much of the world. We see a lot of, like you said, it's what's that one? The Road by I think Jack Kerouac or something like that. It's just a kid and a boy going down this really, really intense road where they get attacked by stuff and bad stuff happens.
People are terrible.
And that's what we get. Because, I mean, we don't really see any of the back plot to the world in this first volume.
Oh, I was going to say his father had told him the whole time, outside of the woods is literally hellfire and sin and the worst stuff imaginable. And so, of course, the kid's never been outside. So a lot of this first volume that we've read is Gus and Jeopard trying to escape the woods intact.
Yeah, and what I kind of like what they did with it, because his father's not in it long at all. He's pretty much just there to introduce us to him and show who raised him, and then he pretty much dies. But his father, basically everyone else we see in this universe, isn't a great person. This world is just kind of beating them all down. And what I find interesting about that is the contrast with Gus, because he's very innocent and honestly gullible to a fault. But I don't know, I enjoy that element of taking a kid who isn't fucked up in the head and he's venturing out into this world that his dad said didn't even exist. And while it might not literally be, on fire, there's a lot of crazy, weird shit going down.
There is a lot of crazy stuff. And a lot of it's attached to him in general, because we talked about how all these kids that are being born, I think everybody thinks it started 7 years ago when the plague happened, but supposedly Gus is 9 is what he's been told by his dad.
Yeah, he's older than what.
For whatever reason, was born 2 years before the plague ever came up.
Which again, makes you question even more.
Chicken and the egg situation.
Maybe he's the one that kind of caused everything to break out, but it's also why was he born first? And he may not be the only person that was born first. There might be someone else. I don't know where they're kind of going with it.
Yeah, I've only made it through the first 2 volumes. I actually read this before we even thought about reading it for the podcast, so I've gotten a little bit ahead.
Overachiever, as always, Higgins.
It might be one of the first times, but...
Well, Steve, you read this first volume, kind of where it ends with Gus ending up at, not the preserve, but it's some military compound where Jeopard sells him out, basically, for a bag of something. They give him a bag at the end.
God,
where do you kind of... I don't know, where'd that leave you? Where do you think, this is going to go even more south than it already has, or do you think it's going to pick up and he's going to... Because I think he finds kids like him at the end, maybe? Or is that maybe I'm making that up. I'm not sure.
I don't remember if it got to that point. I know they know that there's kids like him, and I know that Jeopard knows that they've been taken by these people that are trying to take Gus. Mm-hmm. So
I have thoughts, but I'll be honest, I did read a bit farther ahead than you guys told me to. I'm bad.
It's all right. We do have to keep it to book 1, though, because we made promises.
Now you tell us a little bit about kind of what you read.
Well, the last pages that we read seem to imply that, and I'm going to take this might go to a dark place. I hope that's all right with you too.
It's fine. It fits the tone of that book. So
the end of this book seems to imply that maybe it's the children's fault, or at least Gus's fault for the disease, that they kind of deserve maybe what's happening. I like, a story about a kid who is treated differently because of the way he's born, but he's overcoming that because he's still just a really kind human being. And then it's like if scientists came out and proved that the Nazis were right about Jews, and it makes me a little uncomfortable. That's all. I'm a person who tries to find meaning in things, in everything that I read, and that's one thing that stuck out to me.
No, that makes sense, and that's kind of touching on what I had mentioned earlier. It's you want to see him go through these trials, because is he gonna kind of give in to this hatred that is being thrown his way, when technically, just because he was born, it doesn't mean he necessarily meant to do anything wrong. Like, if the virus was caused by him, it's not like he intentionally meant for that to happen. He's just a kid.
Yeah, of course.
And so to have like the rest of the world just try and kick him down and bring him down to their level, I want to see how he takes that. And the thing about Jeff Lemire, I feel like he could go kind of either way he wants to with it and pull it off really well, because a lot of his books are kind of like this. They're just very depressing, desolate, apocalyptic worlds, and everything sucks and everyone's awful except like the main character.
And then, I mean, usually he ends up bringing it to a place that ends up being like, I don't know about happy, but satisfying.
Yeah, it's kind of bittersweet, a lot of his endings to his stories. This one kind of made me think of another book that Higgins and I read before we did the podcast, Descender, which is it's sci-fi, but that's about a robot kid who wakes up after being shut down for 20 years, and everyone hates robots because they think that they caused a terrible event where a lot of people died, so they're automatically just gunning for him. And in that story, by the end, he pretty much holds on to his innocence to a point. He does grow, and I think that's what will happen with Gus. But yeah, I love Jeff Lemire and how he writes characters and interactions between characters. This is mostly just about him and the big man, and the big man ends up betraying him in the end.
I know, it really crushes you at the end of this volume.
It does, because they have these interactions that kind of make Jeopard's kind of standoffish, but he is drawn to this kid in kind of a fatherly way.
It's kind of like really big Gran Torino vibes.
He does kind of look like Clint Eastwood.
Like, he looks exactly like Clint Eastwood, and it's kind of like him with the guy from Gran Torino, where he's a little racist to him, but you can tell that he really likes him, or really loves him even.
Yeah. He's trying not to be such an awful racist.
Yeah.
Except in this one, he does end up selling the kid out to xenophobic scientist.
Maybe.
Well, that's the thing, because he does sell him out, and that makes me wonder, because they were kind of getting along, or so it seemed, was he just lying the entire time to convince him to come with him? Or is there something in that bag that's just that much more important to him? And what is that?
It's like that situation in the, in drama action movies or something, where or maybe even romance, where the guy, he gets with the girl on a dare or something. He's already planning to sell some animal kid off to scientists. He knows where an animal kid is, and then he doesn't realize that he's going to, he's going to end up liking this kid, that they're going to grow fond of each other.
So you're basically telling me, I can't remember what this movie's called, but Freddie Prinze Jr.'s the main guy, and then he falls in love with the girl after she takes off her glasses.
After she takes off her glasses.
Yeah, so is Gus the girl with her glasses on?
Gus is the girl with her glasses on, and him
and Mr. Jeopard is Freddie Prinze Jr.
And Mr. Jeopard is Freddie Prinze Jr. And it is amazing too. If you've read this, you'll know Gus looks just like actress name here, and Freddie Prinze Jr., rather, Mr. Jeopard, looks just like Freddie Prinze Jr.
I could see Freddie Prinze Jr. looking like this in probably only 10 to 20 years at this point, right?
I don't know. I feel like he's one of those people that just looks younger as time goes on.
Hollywood, get on this. Listen, 10 years. Start writing now, of course. We need Freddie Prinze Jr. to play Mr. Jeopard in a Sweet Tooth spin-off movie, spun off from the Netflix series. It shows up in theaters.
So wait, it's a spin-off of the show that just came out, is what you're saying?
No, a spinoff of the remake of the show that just came out.
Oh, so they need to remake the show first and then spin it off into a movie and then cast Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah,
I get you.
It should only take 10 years.
Yeah, they can go ahead and start it now, honestly. Just have 2 competing Netflix shows. Or maybe like Hulu gets one.
Both called Sweet Tooth.
Yeah. What's the 2 Firefest documentaries? It's like one's better than the other. It could be that kind of situation.
Yeah.
The Hulu one's better, by the way.
And then like Netflix had the Black
Cauldron.
Nah, you know,
Disney,
like the thing where it's an anthology.
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror.
Yeah.
And Hulu had that really bad knockoff something 404 that was kind of fine. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't. It must be that bad.
I do, but I never watched it.
It was fine. Patton Oswalt was in one.
Oh, I do like Patton Oswalt.
I love Patton Oswalt.
Yeah. I haven't watched his MODOK show. I've heard it's fine.
I like MODOK.
Yeah.
Are we talking about, is this a MODOK podcast? All right. So the
No,
thing
we're going to record the MODOK podcast after this podcast.
Well, let me get this in now. The great thing about the MODOK show, which we can talk about in the MODOK podcast, it is a fun sitcom, and it's got those fun sitcom tropes, and that's all.
It's good to know. That makes me more interested to watch it, Steve, so thank you.
You guys want to talk about any of the tumultuous things they go through on their journey? And we know that they meet, and then they get to the end, and he gives them up, but what was some of the things that made their bonds grow stronger?
Oh, you mean like the middle parts?
The middle parts, yeah.
Oh.
Like issues, I don't know,
between
2 through 4.
Yeah, that's the middle parts.
I liked. Can I? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Teacher. I liked, when Gus heals Mr. Jeopard, he gets in this really badass fight with some. These guys look crazy too. Okay, so these.
Oh yeah, they have animal masks on.
Yeah, let's preface this. There's 3 guys that start approaching them in the middle of the night while they're trying to sleep, and they've all got these wooden, like animal, like tribal masks on, and they all look like scary and radical. And wow, they beat the heck out of him. But let me tell you, you don't want to see the other guys.
They got smacked. Their heads had holes in them.
Smacked in them, and the heads in their holes. And one tries to run off with old Gus, with young Gus. Mr. Jeopard, oh boy, when he 360 no scopes this guy in the elephant mask, hole in the noggin, and then he saves Gus, and then immediately collapses on the floor. Oh man, it was gnarly. And so Gus had to take him. Am I going too long? Gus had to take him to find shelter, and Gus healed him up all on his own because of knowledge that he knew from just living with his paw out in the woods. Oh, it's so sick.
It was pretty rad. But what's it? Yeah, you described like a pretty gung ho scene there, and you know it's wild.
What's that?
It was all just on a picture book, Steve. You didn't even see that go across a TV screen.
That wasn't even in a movie. You guys can get this amount of action from a freaking book. Go read.
God, can you imagine how great that scene's going to be when Freddie Prinze Jr. beats up all those guys?
In the remake. Right?
In the remake of the spinoff, yes. Or reboot, whatever.
I hope he wears
stilts.
I know it won't be like true to like the book, but I hope he wears like the Fred from Scooby-Doo outfit while he does that movie.
Which one? Scooby-Doo 1 or Scooby-Doo 2?
Well, I want the
Monsters Unleashed.
I want the more traditional one from 2.
I think
because 1 he goes off brand when they're on the island, but like early Fred in the movie has the ascot. Yeah, I want the ascot.
They look more cartoon accurate in the beginning of that movie before they split up and they dress like people in the 2000s.
I just want that.
No one should ever do, quite frankly. Have you seen fashion from the 2000s? I mean, I know we were all there, but have you looked back on it?
I think we're about to get it again. We're about due.
I hope not.
I mean, I've already seen low-rise jeans come back.
Can we just skip to the 2010s?
Lots of horizontal striped shirts.
All tight.
Make you look big.
So that was a pretty big middle part Steve described. Honestly, I kind of forgot about that part, and that makes a lot more sense why he's having these hesitations about giving this kid up, even though he still does. Higgins, were there any other middle parts that you were like, man, this is good literature I'm reading?
I like that middle part where I got up and made a second drink, and then we talked about what we drank today.
Oh my God, Higgins. That's my favorite part.
Was that a pretty good segue?
It's a segue.
I worked so hard on it.
You did completely ignore the question he was asking you.
I mean, I was talking about a middle part of our podcast.
All right, well, Higgins is going to make the drink, and normally I would just, cut this gap, but Steve is here, so I'll talk to Steve. Steve, do you want to tell the listeners about the drink that we gave you and what you think of it?
It had no taste. Here's the weird thing. It had no taste. It was colorless, odorless, and I But I definitely saw them mix something into the water first, and now I'm getting a little sleepy. No, so the drink was it was milk, and then it had milk. I don't know what you call this stuff because I'm not an alcohol familiar.
You're not used to the finer things in life.
I'm not used to it. I'm a hillbilly, and so I don't know what it's called. It's some kind of creme de liqueur or cream liqueur, but it's chocolate. No, it's not chocolate. It's milk, and then milk alcohol. Godiva, like the chocolate tier,
that's right,
makes this alcohol, but it ain't chocolate. This is milk tasting, baby. And all right, so what we did is it was like a 2-to-1 ratio milk to alcohol, and you mix it, and man, it tastes just like eggnog or like sweetened milk, but you get a little tipsy from it.
Is it a good kind of tipsy for you?
I like it.
Yeah? You're not a huge drinker, I know, so I wasn't sure how you were going to feel about it. The sweeter drinks always kind of put people off, and this one's definitely on up there as far as sweetness.
Yeah, as long as I can't taste it, we're all good.
The alcohol, you mean, yeah?
The alcohol.
Yeah, well, luckily you're not, because as you said, that is Godiva? It's that chocolate people, they make the alcohol, and then, again, like you said, milk to taste. And believe it or not, Steve, this drink is actually called the Sweet Tooth.
It's called the Sweet Tooth?
Mm-hmm. Courtesy of Higgins and his Googling skills, as always.
I'll act like I didn't read that in the text group. Wow.
God, I'll tell you, every time it works so good. All you got to do, I start with the title, and I don't know, at least 82% of the time you get a cocktail that's worth using.
You just let inspiration strike, Higgins, and go with the flow.
Do you see how seamless that was? It's like I never left. But now we have another drink, which is slightly different.
I mean, once I cut out that part where you hit the table, it'll seem like you never left.
Fine. I can't actually hear that part.
No, you can't. You got no headphones today. We gave yours to Steve because he's the guest of honor.
I made a different version for us.
Well, yeah, we ran out of the fancy chocolate liqueur. What'd you put in this one?
Cream de cacao.
Oh, and milk?
Yeah, and milk. I went 3-to-1 on this one because Steve made a face at that second drink when I added some cacao to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went 3 shots of milk to my 1 shot of.
Makes sense. I like this.
Oh, it's just chocolate milk.
Oh, yours or this thing? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't mind chocolate milk that's alcoholic, and I don't mind what we drank a second ago. I'd be one and done. Honestly, it's very sweet. I really like White Russians. It reminded me of that, but a little too sweet. I think I am done talking about this book. If you guys are, I don't really have any. I like it. I'm curious to see where it goes. I don't know if I would binge this. It's very sad.
I think it's it's probably like The Last of Us. It's a lot like The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm. I think the road description was very accurate because I can't finish that movie. So
yeah, no, it's real sad. Old man and boy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's other middle stuff that we could talk about. But I mean, honestly, just read it, guys, or watch the Netflix show.
It is good. It's a fun story about humanity, and it's got some fun action in it, and I like that. But also, I have a list of bullet points. Well, you guys can go, but I do have a list of bullet points.
Oh, you want? Okay.
You want to knock one back?
We're going to leave and let Steve read off his bullet points. That's what you meant, right?
No, you guys are gone?
Yeah, I'll leave it recording.
I feel like we haven't been doing it that long.
Well, if you've got any other points, please, by all means, go for it.
Here's one thing I noticed, and we can talk about this one for a bit. And this is, again, a personal thing. And did Jeff Lemire draw Black Hammer, or was that a different artist?
So there's a variety of artists on just multiple Black Hammer stories. It's like a huge universe now. But no, he did not. He doesn't really draw anymore. He did Underwater Welder is a popular book that he did.
Oh.
Sweet Tooth, the big ongoing one he had. This is very early days Jeff Lemire, and I can kind of see that.
I'll say it right now. Jeff Lemire in this story, not that this isn't to say the art is bad. He just, and maybe this is the point, he draws some of the ugliest people I've ever seen. Now, let me say it. Jeopard, he has a very strong jaw and he looks like a man's man. Still a little ugly. Gus's father, ugly, but also because this makes a little more sense because he's an old man that's dying in a cabin alone with his son, and he's very sad.
Dying of a disease too.
An awful disease that's literally eating away at his body. And so it makes sense that he's a little more wretched. And I'll say it too, because I wanted to mention this. Gus is ugly too. We'll talk about the ugly people, then I'll move on to my next point. In the first issue, I love Jeff Lemire's use of like shadows to show emotion. You can see it all. You see fear, you see despair, you can see like rage, all in just with the shadows. It's incredible. His use of the color black.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. Jeff Lemire, pretty much everything he draws looks like this. And I think it suits the tone of book that he normally makes, where it's usually like kind of a sad dystopian area. And the way he draws it, especially with the dark blacks that you like, it makes it look like a sad dystopian kind of book.
And with this story of an apocalypse and, you know, resources are scarce and people are getting sick and dying, like Steve kind of mentioned with his dad, that's a great kind of panel layout where it's Gus sitting next to him, and then the next panel you just see him getting slowly worse and worse until he kind of is a skeleton. A skeleton.
Yeah. I love that. I meant to mention that, but I love that.
And you talk about how Gus is kind of ugly. I agree, and I think that's to really emphasize why people would be terrified of these hybrid kids, because like he looks sickly.
Yeah, the kid in the Sweet Tooth's like much too approachable looking.
Yeah.
Compared to Gus, and you're like, I get it. Like, you want a cute kid for like a Netflix show, but it's a animal hybrid thing. You're not gonna think like, oh yeah, that's gonna end up real good.
Well, the whole show, kind of just quick going into a little bit, it's very extremely different tonally, and I think Jeff Lemire did have a decent amount of input on this on the Netflix show, and so I'm wondering if he kind of wants to try different things with his old stories. And, you know, what if we took this in a more uplifting way? It's still got some pretty depressing parts, but it's nothing like this. I think this would not work as well in a show. I'm kind of glad they went a different way with it, but I think for this style book and the art, like you mentioned, Higgins, it's just a great combination. And this, I think, is one of the first books that, with his art, that was colored. He picked someone who I will mention right about now. His name is Jose Villarrubia, and apparently Jeff Lemire saw his work and said, "This is someone who's just gonna get me and what I'm drawing and how to add some nice colors to it." But the colors are very muted, and it really sells the setting, which is just desolate and eerie, and that comes, I think, from Jeff Lemire's background and kind of where he grew up, because he's Canadian. He's Canadian.
Yeah, Canadian.
So they've got lots of big, scary woods.
Snow even.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine? When's the last time we had snow?
Like 2 or 3 years ago.
Don't believe it.
I think.
Especially after today.
I got off work, so I know it happened.
I don't have anything to disprove that. Steve, do you have any more bullet points? I love what you brought up here.
Let me see. Do you guys think that Jeopard deserves any kind of redemption after what he did? The man is an adult.
I'll let Snoop answer.
Oh,
because I mean, I know it happens all the way to the end of book 1 also, so I can't give an unbiased answer to that question.
All right, well, I'll take a crack at that then.
Have you only read just through the volume 1?
Yeah.
Or did you burn through the other parts too?
I did want to, but I didn't want to. Yeah, actually, I didn't want to get ahead of you guys.
Yeah.
But also, like I said, it's a very draining book, and I'm pretty sure that's what it sets out to do. So good on it. But to answer Steve's question, I think he will be redeemed in some way, just because he seems to be one of the big characters in the story ongoing, and it's very early days, so he didn't do something awful enough to kind of cement him as a villain that, you know, can't be redeemed or whatever. And that's why I'm interested in what did he give up Gus for? Because they were bonding, it felt like. I don't think that was kind of fake. I don't think he was acting. So, yeah, I think he's got potential. Did that help answer your question, Steve?
It answers it, but I don't like it.
You don't like my answer?
I just disagree, and I don't like anything that I disagree with.
Okay, so
but that's okay. We don't have to... Wait, do we want to talk about it?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you, so what do you think?
Here's what I think. This old man comes into a kid's life and says he's going to help save him. And then, but possibly knowing that he was going to take him to the bad place. Now, I only read the last couple pages, so I don't actually know what happens. I want to believe that Gus does not accept his forgiveness when they eventually meet back up, because I think that, you know, the dude's an adult. Like, he knew what he did, and he shouldn't be sorry about it once he now suffering the consequences, right?
And I'll just like throw in like a thing to like really stew you guys, so you will read the rest of it. You're gonna both like a few of the things that happens in the next like volume.
Ooh.
It doesn't exactly do what you would think it would do, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
But like in a good storytelling way.
Yeah, I do want to kind of see where it goes forward, especially the interaction between those two, if they are reunited, and for whatever reasons, because Steve kind of made a good point. He doesn't necessarily have a good reason to forgive him, even if he saves him, because he's the reason he's in that predicament in the first place.
Oh yeah, he doesn't owe anything to him at that point. He's maybe a month or two of his time they've been together. I can't really gauge the exact length of time, but I mean they're not going far.
Yeah, it's definitely not, because this volume's called Out of the Woods, so I imagine they just kind of make it out of the woods and go a little further until they hit the preserve that's not the preserve. So
yeah,
it's very early days with this one, and I am excited to see kind of where it goes. I just want to read something a little happier.
I too am. I do want to see where it goes. I've been saying a lot of what sound like negative things about it, but I do like the story, and I definitely want to see also where Jeff Lemire takes it.
Makes sense to me. You got input, Steve, and I love that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, do you
do you have a rating? Do you have
a rating to go?
I have one more bullet.
Yeah, one more bullet
this
point.
Last bullet point.
I guess so.
Steve's got one last bullet point, so I'm gonna let him cover that right now.
I have one more bullet point, and this is a nothing, and obviously this matters not at all to me, but at some points their relationship felt more like that of two lovers, perhaps, than that of a man who just met a child and now has a father-son relationship with him. There were times when I just felt that Gus's affection towards the man was leaning more towards
Call me by your name.
Call me by your name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I saw that, but I get your metaphors.
Yeah. And again, this is nothing to me. I care not at all about this, but I thought it was interesting. And it was something that when I was reading, I was like, I had to double take, because I was like, does the kid love him or not? Like, love him.
You're just tired of the furry community not being properly represented in comics. And you know what? I'm right there with you.
This is the first furry comic ever printed, and it should be, and it's iconic. And Gus is an icon. Sweet Tooth, his persona, is an icon.
And if they don't put that romance in the Netflix show, they're cowards, quite frankly.
I want to see the kiss. No, Gus, actually, that's disgusting. Gus is a child. He's 9 years old. Maybe 7 if you believe science.
Well, those were solid bullet points, and thank you for covering those, Steve, because we talked about some pretty good stuff in there, I think, and I might be wrong, but you know what? I enjoyed it. But what I would enjoy even more is if you gave a rating for this book.
I give this book, Sweet Tooth, a 7.5 points on an antler out of 10. Points on an antler because Gus is a deer. Do you get it?
Yeah, I got it. I was going to do the same thing, so now I'm going to have to think a little bit. It's fine, but...
It was very obvious.
All right, so I'm going to say that I give it, I don't know, like 8.5 baddies out of 10 that Gus shoots.
Gus shoots?
Yeah, Gus.
With a slingshot?
No, like, what's the other one? Mr. Jeopard.
Yeah, big man.
Gus does sound like an old man's name, so forgive me.
Snoop, what did you think?
Oh, thank you for asking, Steve. Higgins never does that. This one's a little tough for me, honestly, because I did really like it, but it's just so early on that I'm not really sure kind of where it's going to go or how I'm going to feel about that. But for right now, just based off that, I'm going to take one long walk out of the woods and head to a lovely preserve.
Nice.
Bright sunny day.
Right. He liked it.
Yeah.
That means he liked it,
that
Steve.
means he liked it. Because knowing what the preserve is, I'm like, oh, he's going there to fucking get away from... But he liked it.
He liked it.
You liked it?
I liked it.
But did you have fun, though?
I had fun with you.
Do we want to do that other thing, or have we been running a little long?
Oh, no, we've got some time. I'll probably, chop here and there anyway.
I got you. I had an idea. We all kind of watched this one thing, so we can do a threesome one. That way, maybe we can knock it down a peg.
Very sexy.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready? I'm gonna try to remember my.
And this is the segment that you introduced last episode.
Yeah, I introduced last episode.
And I think
did you save the theme song?
I didn't, but I'm pretty sure I mentioned that you weren't gonna remember it. So let's see how you do.
Readings for squares. It's something like that, right?
Yeah, that's pretty dead on.
Readings for squares.
And that's that segment where Higgins wants to talk about something that's not book related. If you read it, we don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I forgot about this part. Hey, I remember you guys.
We got one, and if you guys are okay with it, I'm just gonna throw out one that we'll all probably be able to talk about for 5 to 10 minutes.
Sure.
It's this real fun thing we all watched on Netflix. It's a Australian sketch comedy show called Auntie Donna's Big House.
Oh, Auntie Donna's.
And I know these boys are pretty pumped for this. I've heard them singing these songs for a couple weeks now.
Can't stop.
Oh, dude, Auntie Donna's Big Old House of Fun I'm obsessed with it. We don't have normal conversations anymore. We just quote the show, and it's a good one.
Could you give us a quick description of it? What would you say it is?
It's literally 3 dudes. It's okay.
It's our life story. It's 3 dudes who live in a house.
Sketch comedy, 3 guys that are roommates. That each episode kind of loosely follows a theme. So like treasure or
dating,
work training for the 2020 Olympics. And you get a bunch of fun skits that loosely fit that theme. And it is so wacky and wild and fun and very adult. Golly, if you don't like it, I just don't know what's wrong with you. Well, that's not fair to say, because if you don't like it, I don't want to sound like I'm attacking you.
It's a very, I love that kind of humor. It's just real weird. And you kind of said it's a sketch comedy group who got a Netflix show. And I've kind of listened to interviews about it. They basically took a lot of their sketches and did them either slightly changed or new, just on, bigger production value. Netflix is just throwing out money. And so it's cool to see people kind of get that opportunity and get it out to more mainstream, because I didn't hear about them until this Netflix show came out. And I'm not a huge fan of sketch comedy, honestly, but I think having that loose narrative each episode kind of makes it fun and makes me want to keep watching to see how it ties up in the end.
I'm sure it being a Netflix show lended itself to maybe coming across better to people too. They were able to cut and chop stuff, because normal sketch comedy you see on a stage and they just have to roll with the first rip at it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure these guys were just ripping I'm sure those jokes went on much longer than the 5 to 10 minutes they went on anyways.
They go on very long.
Yeah, so I'm sure they were pumping out 20 minutes of jokes, and they're let me just chop and screw the best 5 to 10 minutes.
And what's fun about this show for me is they more or less play every character that they introduce. There are other people that they've had in the sketch comedy groups in their past videos that show up and do other parts, but most of the characters or the bits they do are just them in various costumes. I think I told you there's a video on one of Netflix YouTube channels where it's one of the guys, Zach, talking about how he was in a makeup chair for 4 hours to become Alfred Hitchcock, and that joke is literally 3 seconds.
Man.
So
they're dedicated to their craft. They love it. They love to get a good laugh, and they get the laughs out of us. Plus, it's only 6 eps. So
6 episodes, about 30 minutes each.
I don't even know if they're that long. They're 20?
Maybe 22.
Maybe 22 minutes.
Which is a standard 30-minute TV show.
Mm-hmm. You got some cool cameos in there as well, which kind of adds some more credibility to
it.
Egg
Helms. I don't know that other guy's name. Jerry Seinfeld.
Scott Aukerman's in it.
Weird Al Yankovic?
Yeah, Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah,
Jerry Seinfeld.
Jerry Seinfeld is in it. He's actually the best cameo.
So he's sort of in it. Anthony Starr, who's Homelander in The Boys, the Amazon show. He's just in there for no reason.
I'm sure he's Australian, right?
New Zealand.
Yeah. So close.
Yeah.
That's what those guys are, right?
They're Australian.
Oh man.
You're striking out left and right, but that's fine. If you
really pissed off your Oceanic viewers.
Kucker, you really you love their work, because I've kind of looked at more of their stuff thanks to you showing me, which I appreciate. But there's an interview on a podcast that I listen to where they talk about kind of how that show got started. So I think I would check that out. I can send you a link to it later if you want.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
I think we sold it, guys. So I guess we'll wrap things up. Book. Can we say Josh's, or do you just want to say what our next one's going to be and just record Josh's when he can, and then just put it at whatever next issue thing we can put him in as?
You said enough words. That sounds like a good enough plan to me.
All right. So do you have a book that you would like to do, or would you like me to pick a book that we could do?
Hanks, you got that look on your face like you got a book to do.
Yeah, I mean, we can do you said you wanted one that's kind of light.
I would love a pick me up, honestly.
Let me just work through. I have that one that I just bought. I've kind of been on a buying spree, boys and girls.
You took advantage of Amazon Prime Day.
I did. I bought some comics.
Bought some Roomba.
I want to say this, How to Talk to Girls at Parties, but at the end of the day, that might be depressing too. So I don't know if I want to say that one. Let me. I have a list here.
Read off the list, and whichever one Steve really reacts to, we'll go with.
All right.
The next book that we're doing is the awful, terrible Dark Souls comic book that came out in 2016. It is very bad and it's tough to follow, and it uses in-game, like rendering of in-game 3D models as its art. The panels are all in-game 3D renders with a filter over them. And you know what? Fuck me for not noticing until I was halfway through the book.
I remember the last time you were on the podcast, you bought that book pretty much right after and told me how terrible it was.
It was so bad.
I was curious that they even made a comic out of that, because as far as I'm aware, like, I know that the Dark Souls franchise has a lot of lore and everything, but it doesn't really seem too heavy on story as a whole. Am I wrong?
There's definitely something there, but as far as like, I mean, they picked a nameless NPC character, which I think was their first failure, but also like they also picked a story which is just, so vague and just impossible to tell within the confines of someone could do it, but I think that this one in particular was just not done well. It tried to cover vague parts of the universe's history.
Makes sense. I mean, those games kind of focus on you being a nameless, character. You kind of make your story as you play. So if someone else is writing that, that's not your version of that story. So you're already kind of going to be taken out. Was it Sekiro had a pretty linear kind of plot going on for it?
It could have a comic. There's a Bloodborne comic too. I don't know if that one's any good.
I got 2 options for you.
I love that.
Hit me.
All right, so my first one, I'm not going to do the How to Talk to Girls at Parties because I just feel like it's not going to be a good time. It'll probably be a good read, but I don't think it'll be like, feel good vibes. So I'm thinking either Squirrel Girl.
Ooh.
Or this one that I just found called The World of Adina. It follows investigators Stell and Atan as they stumble upon the mythical paradise planet of Adina while attempting to locate a lost space station and its vanished crew.
Huh.
A dreamlike vacation into a fantastical world.
Okay. I've never heard of that, so that does that intrigues me. I do love a Squirrel Girl comic. I haven't read a ton of them.
I haven't read any of them. I've heard it's pretty feel good though.
Yeah, she's just a fun character who can kind of do whatever she wants. Might save that though, because I'm sure that very soon there'll be a Squirrel Girl. Yeah, it's hard to say. Pretty soon there'll be an announcement about a show or a movie, probably.
Oh, okay.
So we could save that for that. We still haven't done a Black Widow comic.
Yeah, we can't yet, so that's fine.
Well, that movie comes out in like a week or 2 or something. So we might just have to come back to that at a later date. But that's not our fault, is it? We were prepared.
Yeah, we tried.
It was Hollywood who dropped the ball.
I mean, we tried.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking that second one sounds pretty interesting. What is it called again?
It's called The World of Adina.
Love that.
It's by John Gerard, but he goes by Moebius. Moebius.
That's much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, we can check that out. And
I think, want me to close her out? Say some words?
Yeah, why don't you just take out that mop and clean up shop, Higgins?
All right, so you guys can talk to us about all the things that we said about today or said about in our past like 26 episodes. And you can do that. You can find me on Twitter at MikeHiggins93 and on Instagram at JSturm93. You can find both me and Snoop at our Gmail, which is yourcomrades@gmail.com.
I'm always there.
That's where he is. He doesn't do the other ones.
I don't need it, quite frankly.
Yeah, he doesn't need it.
You don't either.
Steve, I don't know if you want them to know where they could find you on.
You can find Steve in our house.
Oh yeah, you can find Steve in our house.
You can find me in the old household. Also, I use a single social media, kind of. You can find me at PANK_ACHES on Instagram. That's pancakes on Instagram. But you don't, though.
Honestly, email us and Steve will be around and we'll be able to pass that message along.
Yeah, that's really how it works.
If
I live here,
you just really want to talk to Steve, and we would really appreciate if you guys drop us a review on all your local podcatchers. The Apple Podcast is probably the most important. I don't think you can on Spotify, but I'm sure you can on Stitcher and all of the other good boys. We have like 8 ratings now and 1 new review from someone.
Oh, dang, you beat me to it. I was trying to get to it.
I don't know who it is.
I do.
Okay.
Go ahead and read the review.
Oh, I don't have it up.
Oh, okay.
It's just from Maisie is the best.
Yeah, so I've actually
I don't know who
I already know.
I think I know someone with a dog named Maisie.
Yeah.
But I don't know off the top of my head which one it is.
Higgins, will you kindly indulge me and let me read the review from Maisie is my bestie?
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, do it.
They say influencers that don't even have to try. I don't really read comics or drink cocktails, but these comrades make me want to quality topics, quality audio, and quality people. Thank you for that 5-star review, Jenny.
Oh, okay.
It's Jenny.
That's the new dog?
That's the new dog on the block, yeah.
Okay, I forgot, and I wanted to say I knew someone else with a Maisie, so... Well, that being said, guys, we've read all of our reviews so far, and I think we'll probably do that at least until, like, our 10th one, so if you guys want to make us say anything on a microphone, just, pop it in a review.
Mm.
But we'll only read it if it's, like, connected to a 5 stars, so...
I don't know. I'd read a 1-star.
Yeah, I'll read it. I'll read it either way. They don't actually even show the stars next to the review most of the time. I don't think.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they
do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they
don't.
It's
hard to say.
How
Apple's
would you know how many stars it is then?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're just gonna assume that they like us and it's 5.
But yeah, we appreciate everything we've got. We appreciate our listeners, and as Snoop always says when he leaves.
Well, Higgins, I always say, cheers, guys. And Steve doesn't always say things because he's not usually here, but he is. So what are you going to say?
I'm going to say, guys, I hope you had a good time listening to this podcast. I'm glad I was in it. I hope you continue to listen because these guys, wow, they're a hoot. I'm gone. I'm going to disappear into the ether. Goodbye.
Lovely. And Higgins, you're going to say a thing now.
9 out of 10 dentists recommend this super sugary sweet book.
That's good. Dentists normally wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I'll leave this off air, but I saw this TikTok where this guy was being the 10th out of 10 dentist, and it looked like one of those videos where someone's like forcing him to say that he agrees with the toothpaste, and it was real good. It was like he was being tortured just to agree with so there'd be a 10 out of 10 toothpaste. Oh boy.